Hey, 3D animation class, welcome to your week 1 lecture. Today, we are going to just make sure that you've got Blender downloaded and installed, the latest version. There was a brand new shiny version over the summer that you may not have. We're going to just remind ourselves how to animate using the timeline, adding keyframes and stuff like that within Blender. We're going to talk about your first assignment, which will be due in 2 weeks. And then we're also going to, as part of that, remember how to render videos. So because this is the animation class, what you will be submitting for your assignments is animations. So make sure you really refamiliarize yourself with rendering. If it just so happens that you are new to Blender and you're in the animation class, this 3D animation class, I also have provided a link to the playlist of the 3D Basics class lectures. So if you need to go back and look at any of those, definitely do so. But we're kind of like, after this quick refresher, we're just picking up right where we left off last semester in 3D Basics. Now, the general idea for assignments and what we're learning in this class is that we're focusing on the animation part of things. So as much as I can, I'm going to be providing you with a character to animate or something else to animate, like a face rig or something like that when we're doing face animations. So you're not going to be modeling things hardly at all in this class. We're focusing just on kind of the animation stuff. So your assignments may not be, like feel or look totally complete. We're not going to do like materials or kind of any of those kinds of things, but we're really going to focus on just like the movement, the animation, camera angles, kind of trying to create realistic animations and things like that. So I believe that's my spiel. So let's look at Blender. All right. So if you go to blender.org, the latest version is Blender 4.2 LTS. I think I believe in the spring they were on 4.1. So I think the big, let's even look at what's new, what it says here. The main thing I saw was that they did some big improvements to the Eevee render engine. So we'll probably experiment with that a little bit, more so in the modeling class, but. Yeah, so this says real displacement is, it's behind my head. Real displacement is now supported in Eevee. So like, I think the renders that we're seeing here these are Eevee renders. And so like, look at how quickly it can go. So it's still not to the point of like a game engine where it can render things in real time. But sort of. So here it says sensational lighting. Eevee can now automatically extract intense lights from the world environment and treat them as sunlights, improving the lighting quality and casting real shadows. Yeah, so that's cool. Eevee improvements. I don't necessarily see anything about animation per se. So make sure you download that. And a reminder, when you install a new version of Blender, it doesn't remove the old one. So like if you're conscious of space on your computer, you might want to just go find your old versions and delete them once you do the new version. Okay, here we are in Blender. I'm going to start with a new general file. So first step, I'm actually really bad about this, but make sure that anytime you start a new project, you save it right away. So I'm going to just let me move my head a little bit. I never am sure where my face should be. And maybe maybe it's my vanity. I don't actually need my face to be visible at all, but I think it helps. Okay, so in your file menu up here, save. And let's see, I will now create a animation class for fall 2024, animation. And I'll just call this week 1. Week 1. Now, so the first thing you should do is save it, because then, having saved it once, this will allow the auto-saving function to happen. So, over the summer, I actually was working on a thing here in Blender, and I didn't save it at all. And so the autosave wasn't happening because you have to do that first save. And so I lost probably about 2 hours worth of work because I was like starting to render things and then the render crashed, and you know how it goes. Okay, so in your edit menu up here, top left, go down to preferences, and it's here in save and load. So down here at the bottom left, then you can change these values as you see fit. This is what I've got. So I've got 5 save versions and autosave of 5 minutes. So that means I'll have 25 minutes of backup basically at 5-minute increments. Usually I can't do too much damage within 25 minutes. And also as a note, if you need to restore from one of these autosaves, if you go to File and Recover, let's see, you can do Recover Autosave like this, and it'll look back and it'll show you, it'll filter. And actually you maybe need to, oh yeah, what is this? Autosave, it's doing it, not quite doing it how I expected. But then if you hit this filter, you can check backup blend files, and then like your 5 most recent autosaves, I believe, should be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can recover them. Anyway, here we are. Blender. Super quick refresher about animation. We've got workspaces along the top. Layout. We're in layout workspace right now. There's modeling, sculpting, UV editing, texture paint, shading, animation. We maybe will be spending some time in the animation workspace, but I pretty much always just do layout, and you know I can kind of move my windows around as I see fit. So in the layout workspace, along the bottom we have timeline down here. So if you hover your mouse over one of these edges, you can click and drag and make it bigger. Any window here in Blender, don't forget that in the top left of any window, you can change what's in that window. So if we hit the little clock icon here, this is showing us that we are in the timeline panel. And there's a few other animation panels here that we'll probably look at all of these throughout the semester, including a couple of them today. But we'll leave it in the timeline for now. So just a quick reminder of the controls. While your mouse is in the 3D viewport here in the center, oh, and I gotta turn on my keyboard thing. All right, now you should be able to see my mouse clicks. If you click and hold your middle mouse wheel, hopefully you have one, you can rotate around in the world. If you don't have a middle mouse wheel, you can actually just click and drag on the XYZ axis up here in the top right. You can left click and drag like that to rotate around. If you hold down the shift key and do the middle mouse wheel, that's move the view. So hold down shift and then click and hold the middle mouse button wheel. You can move your view. If you don't have a middle mouse button or a mouse at all, you can click and hold on the hand here, and that does the same thing. And then scrolling in and out, your middle mouse wheel will zoom in and out, and then that's what this button does here, zoom in and out. If you click and hold that with your left click, you can go in and out. This is your camera here, so left click to select things. So this is a camera in your scene, this is the light, this is a cube. You can also, behind my head here, you can click and hold on the objects in your scene like this. Okay. In order to render, you need to have a camera in your scene. So I am going to leave the camera and the light in here for now. But let's talk about animating. So I'm gonna like speak very plainly and basically to kind of just get everybody up to speed. Don't worry if you're like rolling your eyes at this. You're like, no, like so boring. Just like skip ahead if it's boring. But I have to just like make sure everybody has these super basic skills first before we continue. So on our timeline down here, let's look. So the timeline goes from left to right. So if you have your mouse in your timeline window down here, and if you press the space bar, that is going to play. You can see the blue line is called the current time indicator, and it's it's playing from left to right. So our scene right now starts on frame 1. These numbers are the number of frames, and ends on frame 250. So that doesn't necessarily give us a clue of how long in time this is. We need a little bit more information. So the properties panel here on the bottom right. Let's look at output properties. It's the one that looks like a printer, like a page coming out of a printer. So this is our scene format here. This is the resolution, 1920 by 1080. And here's the big one, frame rate, 24 frames per second, which is considered to be, you know, the cinematic frame rate, a little bit lower frame rate. I don't know. I like 30. It's more of a standard video frame rate. Depending on what you're doing, you know, you can change it to whatever you want. But obviously more frames means more rendering. So just take that into account. So if I do, if I'm at 30 frames per second, 250 frames, I don't know, don't make me do the math. I'm actually just going to click on frame end here and say 300. So I know that this is exactly 10 seconds at 30 frames per second. Whoa, excuse me. All right, where were we? Adding keyframes. So let's just animate our cube a little bit. So if you left click on the cube, the keyboard shortcut to add a keyframe, and I'm actually going to go to frame 1 on my timeline here, is I for insert keyframe. So if you tap I on your keyboard, nothing happens. Hold on. Okay, I had to look this up because it actually changed. Okay, so I'm actually going to delete what I did here. So I'm on frame 1. So now this is new, even from the spring. This is a new 4.2 thing. So the I key will key all of your basic transform properties. So actually, with the cube selected, left click, I'm going to click on my object properties right here, this orange one on the right side. These are the basic transform properties: location X, location Y, and location Z, rotation X, Y, Z, scale X, Y, Z. Undo a little bit. Ding, 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 ding. So the I key, if I tap I, it's going to keyframe all of these things. You can see all of these values turn yellow, and this diamond has been filled in next to each property. Additionally, on the timeline down here, you may need to like roll some of these open a little bit. Like it may look like this for you. So if you click and drag this open, we see summary, and underneath number 1 there, you can see there's a little orange diamond. If you drop down some of these like collapsible menus, you can see we have keyframes on all of these properties: X, Y, and Z. Why is the X down here? Y, Z, X, X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z scale. So all of these values have been keyframed. So that is with the I key. To delete a keyframe, so how you can view these collapsible menus or keyframe menus is the top layer will select everything at that keyframe on the cube. If you select this one here, the one below it, it's going to select all the ones underneath. And then same thing here. Then you can select individual keyframes here. So when they're highlighted, they're orange like this. You can see me go down. So if I actually want to just remove the Z scale keyframe, I can just click on that one down here and delete just that property. And then you can see over here, it's no longer green, it's gray, which means it's not being animated. Green means it's animated, as does yellow. Anyway, okay, so that's with the I key. I'm actually just going to click the top one here on the cube and press the delete key, because then it'll delete all the keyframes at that frame. Now, the other option is, rather than I, you can press K. K for insert keyframe. This used to be I, so maybe confusing. So this allows you to select which parameters you want to create a keyframe for. So for example, if you only are animating the location and rotation, maybe you select this one. And then you can see, if I open down or twirl open these menus, I only have keyframes for X, Y, and Z location, X, Y, and Z rotation. Same thing is visible over here. Okay. Now to animate, you have to move forward in time, because if I just change these values now, if I say like move these, move this, and I'm gonna G to grab and move and R to rotate like this. Two things to notice: all of these are orange. So this means that what the orange color means on the value is that it's different than what is being keyed. So like it signals the value has changed, but it's not been keyed. So this is sort of like an error that like now if I actually move my my current time indicator, my playhead here, it's going to snap back to where it was because I didn't update the keyframe. So you can see it's going back to 0000 because I was still on the frame with the keyframe and I didn't add a new keyframe. So what I need to do is maybe go forward in time, maybe to frame 60, And now I can go G to move it, R to rotate it. But now we can see it's orange again. So we need to add keyframes for these values. So I can do K, and I can do location and rotation again, or available, or I can also just fill in these diamonds on the right here. So I can say key this, key this, key this. You can see once I add the keys, they turn yellow, which means it's animating. And so now when I scrub the playhead back and forth between these keyframes, we can see that it animates between the keyframes. That is how animating happens. You add a keyframe in one spot, you add a keyframe in another spot, change it in between, and it'll travel between those values. So just as a further proof of concept, you have to add keyframes in order for it to animate to that location or whatever. So for example, let's say I want to add a third spot in the middle. Let's say I want it to start here and end here, but in the middle, I want it to kind of go out to the side. So if I'm on frame 30 here, I have my cube selected. I'm in object mode up here. Don't forget, we should always be doing this in object mode. If I left click and if I G move it, change the location here like this, you can see that my location things are, or my location values are orange, means it's different and it's not keyed. Like, so you got to make sure to add a keyframe. I can add a keyframe here like this. But if I don't add keyframes, it's going to ignore that movement because it says, nope, you didn't add a keyframe, so I'm not going to go there. So I'm going to go back here to frame 30. I'm going to G, move it here like this. And then I can check these, or if I undo that, I can go K, and just location, maybe something like that. So now we can see now if I play it, it goes back and forth like that. Now there is a function called auto keying, which is this button right here. This is a toggle. So blue means it's on and gray means it's off, on, off. What auto keying will do is anytime any of these values change, it will add a keyframe. So for example, let me delete this one again. Delete that. So now it's just going from this spot to this spot. I have auto keying on now. If I change any of these values, if I hit G to grab and move this, it's going to automatically add a keyframe because a value changed. So that can be handy. It especially will be handy when we're doing character animations, because you'll be adding a lot of keyframes like this. And maybe you'll even do it for this assignment. So for example, it's really handy if you need to do like really minute movements at a time. So I'm going to use one of my orthographic views. So I'm going to tap 1 on my number pad. If you don't have a number pad, don't forget, you can just click on the letters. So you can click on Z up here to do a top down, or X to do a right orthographic view. Or you can also go to View, Viewport, and select one of these: top, bottom, front, back, left, right. You can see those are the keyboard shortcuts if you have a number pad. So for example, if I have auto keying on, and I'm actually going to like delete all of these keyframes. I'll go back to frame 1, and I'm going to G, kind of move this right on that green line. If you use your arrow keys while your mouse is in the timeline down here, it'll move one frame at a time. So right arrow key, left arrow key. And so if there are times where you're going to need to do like a frame by frame animation. And so if I go one frame at a time, I'm just going to have this sort of bounce a little bit. Arrow key, G to grab up, arrow key, G to grab down. So like, you may end up needing to do tiny little animations like this. And so it's handy to have auto keying. So you're saving yourself a few keystrokes every time you're animating a frame. Okay. All right, let's talk about easing. So what I'm going to do is I'm totally going to delete this cube. I'm going to go, let's see, let me set this up. So I'm going to add a new object into the scene here. I'm going to go Shift A, add a new mesh, and I'm going to add a default cube back in here. And let's see, I'm going to, on frame 1, I'm going to add we're going to animate this in the Y direction. So I'm going to click right here and keyframe Y like this, just the Y one. I'm going to go forward to like frame 60, and I'm going to change this value to, I don't know, 15 meters. I'm going to make a nice even 15. I'm going to type in the value 15 and hit the enter key. So we're exactly at 15, and the auto keying was on, so it automatically added a keyframe. I'm going to turn auto keying off just to make sure I'm not doing anything weird. And then I'm actually going to change my end frame to 100 because we're not doing anything past here. So if I play this, it's going to kind of loop back and forth. It's going to go to frame 60. And then it'll start over after it plays 100 frames. Okay. Now, I'm going to duplicate this 4 times. So actually, I'm gonna hit 7 to do my top-down view. And you can see it's actually traveling this way now, and that's fine. So my top-down view, and I'm going to select this cube, and I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate this, and I'm just going to put it over here. And because I'm not keying the X value, I can move this around as much as I want, and it's not going to make a big deal. So you can see that one's moving just fine. We want to be precise. I'm going to just make this -4. And then I'm going to do that one again. So I'm going to Shift D, move it over here, and then this one will be -8. And then we'll do one more. So I'm going to go Shift D, move it over here, and this will be -12. Okay, so we've got 4 cubes that are all doing the exact same thing. Now, we're talking about easing. Okay, first one. So if we were to kind of analyze the movement of these cubes, they start from a standstill, they kind of slowly get up to speed, and then they kind of gently slow down before they stop. So this is called easing. It eases out of where it starts, it eases out, and then it eases in to where it finishes. So ease out, ease in. So like, it's speeding up and slowing down. That's what easing. And so by default, anytime you're adding keyframes like this, Blender is gonna ease. So I'm gonna show you a difference real quick. And a good visualization for this is if we actually look at the graph editor. So I'm going to click the timeline here, and we're going to change this. I'm going to select graph editor. I'm going to adjust this window a little bit, and I'm going to drag this bar here. Let me move my face. So I'm down here. Move this bar so we can kind of see the whole thing. So this, let me twirl this open, Y location. Okay. So if you click on a property, we're seeing it graphed out here. Whoops, I'm clicking on the wrong window. So the Y location is starting at, and so this is a graph of the value that is being animated. So remember, we started at Y value 0, and then up here we ended at Y value of 15. You can see 15 across here. So you can see that it's not a perfectly straight line. It's a little bit curved. So this is if you took calculus in high school or in college, hopefully this is like starting to be like, aha, math is happening. So it slowly starts off, then the steeper the line gets, the faster it's moving, and then you can see it becomes less steep and kind of rounds out, and then eventually it's a flat line. So like a flat line across means it's not moving, it's staying at that value. So that's what's happening here. So I'm going to click on this next one here on the second cube. Hit the drop down here, Y location, and you can like click and move these values if you want. I'm gonna undo that, but I'm gonna select both of these keyframes. The first one is just kind of hiding there, and to change there's handles here that you can change the angles and things like that. We'll do that in a second, but I just want this to not have easing at all. So I'm gonna select this keyframe here. I'm gonna hold down the Shift key and click this keyframe, and I'm gonna tap the V key. This says set keyframe handle type, so we can change kind of how this is easing and stuff like that. And I'm going to change this to vector, which is just going to make it a straight line. So we can see that it's like perfectly straight, which in calculus and in math means that if this value chart is perfectly straight, that means the speed is constant. The speed doesn't change. It starts off at the exact same speed, and it ends at the exact speed, and it stops abruptly. So if I were to play this now, so we're going to analyze the difference between this one and this one. So this one has easing, this one does not. So you can see they all start at the same time and they all finish at the same time, but the speed that they go in the middle is different. So why don't I even hide these ones so we're not being fooled by them. So this is where easing comes into play. So if I were to even do this one at a time, like this, the easing makes it feel like a little bit more natural. Like things don't immediately start with speed. It's sort of like the physics of our universe don't allow for things to like go from 0 to speed like instantly. There's always like a little bit of ramping up. That's how physics works. So if we just look at this one, this is not as pleasant or as pleasing to the eye. It's not as natural of a movement compared to this one. Oops, or I guess, yeah, also that one. So we're already starting to get into like sort of the philosophy of this class. Because anybody can add keyframes and anybody can move something from A to B, but it's sort of like this is where the style and the artistry comes in, is like tweaking these values, making things move in the way we want to. Okay, so let's take this a level further here. I'm gonna stop this. Let's turn on our third cube. I'm gonna select this one and look at the Y value here. So now let's have a little bit more fun. So I'm just like this keyframe here. You can see these little black dots. It's maybe a little tricky to see, but this allows us to manipulate these handles. So I'm gonna hold down the shift key while it's at, and maybe that doesn't necessarily work, but I'm gonna like pull this out and try to keep it as flat as I can, so that the curve here is a little bit more dramatic. I'm gonna do the same thing up here, so we can see as I pull these out. This area in the center here gets a little bit like steeper, a little bit more dramatic. So if we look at the slope of this curve versus the slope of this curve, it's steeper, it's more dramatic. So the effect this is going to have on our cube is that it's going to like, it's going to kind of like slingshot. It's going to start off here really slowly. It's going to just creep off the line, and then in the middle it's going to go fast, and then it's going to very slowly reach the finish line. So let's play this and analyze the difference between the three now. Yeah. So like, they all start and finish at the same spot at the same time, but they're the paths they're taking there, are vastly different. And let's even turn on the third one and take it a little bit farther. So you can see that like if I take these handles, I can even like have it go backwards. So I can have it go like beyond where it needs to be. Let's see what effect this had. This is just a little silly. So if there's sharp corners like this, that's usually kind of a red flag, not a red flag, but just sort of like that's something that you notice, because that means it's not gradually starting. So anyway, and so these all have the same two keyframes. They're all have a keyframe at frame 1 at value 0. They all have a keyframe at frame 60 at value 15, but they all have very different animations. Kind of cool. Okay, so we're actually going to talk about your assignment 1 now. And then I'll tell you what I'm looking for, and then I'm going to go through a very basic example of how I might do this. And then we're going to go through rendering. So like the rest is sort of like what you need to know to complete assignment 1. So let me pull it up real quick. All right, so here on the animation D2L page, if you go up to assessments and then into assignments, this is where you're going to find assignment 1, which is inanimate objects. The next two assignments are related to characters and faces, and then we've got some other things happening. Assignment 1, inanimate objects. Animate any inanimate objects to tell a very short story. I say at least 10 seconds, but, just shoot for 10. Or, more. If you're less, not a big deal. But don't make it like 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Ugh, am I too flexible? Potentially. You can create your own models if you wish, or use free models from the internet. At least 2 objects in your scene must be animated. One of them could be your camera. We'll talk about that in a second. Be creative. Have a beginning, middle, and end. Use different camera shots. Render out your finished project. This is worth 15 points. Okay. So if you wanted to find some free models, that's totally fine too. Just you are responsible for figuring out how to put them in your scene. But actually, I'll show you real quick. Polyhaven is a place that I like to go to. Polyhaven.com. It's a public 3D asset library. Wow, look at this. Look at these things. What are these? Anyway, you can go down here to models, browse models. Everything in here is free. So you can, grab a lemon if you want. Maybe I will grab a lemon. I'm going to download this. Yeah, sure. So I'll walk you through how to do this. So I'm going to open this up when it's done. And actually, what you want to get, rather than downloading a Blender file, you should download an FBX. because then you'll be able to import it into your scene, or you can just download the Blender file that comes with it. So let me download this. There it is. Okay. And if I open up this, you can see that it comes with textures and an FBX file. So I'm going to go ahead and just real quick put this in my Fall 24 animation lemon, and I'm going to drop those in here. So I'm going to copy that out of here, copy and paste. Okay. Close these and close this back into Blender. So I'm going to delete all these three things. And so then we're going to import the FBX. So I'm going to go File and Import, and I'm going to select FBX. So FBX is a format that is sort of the main one that people use to share 3D stuff between different 3D programs. Because it's not like you can't open up a Blender file in Cinema 4D, or you can't open up a Maya in ZBrush or whatever. But FBX is a format that can contain meshes and materials, so it's pretty handy. So I'm going to click on Open FBX, and I'm going to go into Lemon, and I'm going to select lemon 2k.fbx and import FBX. There it is. And it might be teeny tiny. Yep, there it is. Material preview, is the material on there? Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. Just so you know, so by default, I'm going to S to scale up my lemon here. By default, we're in viewport shading, which is or solid mode. Our viewport shading is solid mode, so you can click on render preview. Or sorry, this one is material preview. This one is render preview. Keyboard shortcut to change it to Z. I'm gonna just do material preview because it's a little bit faster. Okay. And let's animate. So I'm actually gonna scale this up a little bit bigger, just so it's a little easier for me to see. S for scale. That's a good looking lemon. Okay. So I'm going to just animate this real quick. So I am going, and it's maybe a little big now. I'm going to Shift A, and I'm going to add a cube, and this cube is going to, my lemon is going to kind of hop along the cube, and then it's going to jump off. That's going to be my quick little story. So I'm going to G, and actually I'm going to S scale my lemon up a little, or my box up a little bit, and I'm going to G, move it down here like this. So the lemon is resting on top. Okay, I'm gonna do my side view. So here's a stylistic question: do lemons shuffle or do they jump? I'm gonna say this lemon is gonna shuffle up to the edge and then jump. So now that I'm looking at my orthographic view here, and what did I say? 10 seconds. So that means I do need to set my my scene here to be 300 frames. But maybe I won't get to 300 frames. We'll just see. Frame rate is 30 frames per second. Okay, there we go. So lemon is on the thing. So now if I do my top-down view, I know that it's going to be at the right height on there. So I'm just going to go back to frame 1 here, and I'm going to do I always forget. Sorry, undo. I'm going to do K, and I want to keyframe the location and rotation, because I'm not going to be changing the scale of this lemon. The lemon's not going to get bigger and smaller necessarily, or squash or anything like that. And maybe I'll even go back to the timeline view because it might be a little bit easier. And I'm just going to move forward in time. And I am going to turn on auto keying, and I'm going to go G to move it just a little bit here like this, and I'm going to have it rotate. So this is it shuffling. It's going to go 6 frames at a time. So it's going to go kind of rotate like this. And so I'm gonna left click kind of outside of the area here, or outside of my keyframe, so that I can move just the ones I want. I can kind of adjust, click and drag these keyframes to kind of move them a little bit. So I'm just gonna kind of I just want to preview a little bit how fast this is going, and kind of adjust these keyframes a little bit. And there is a way, and I'll show you later in the semester, but to kind of extrapolate animation. So like if you add a couple keyframes, it'll just kind of continue on that path. It'll just kind of continue like shuffling to infinity. But because we're not moving that far, I'm just going to kind of do it myself. G to grab and move, R to rotate. Auto keying is on, so it automatically added one. G to move here, R to rotate. So let me just preview this a little bit. I'm going to press the space bar. You can see how we're doing. Yeah, it's a little bit uneven. So I might go back and tweak some of these if I really wanted to. but I think it's fine for now, for demonstration purposes. So just continuing on, I think, which way did it rotate before? It doesn't really matter. I think people maybe expect that animating in 3D is like a little bit more glamorous than it is. But, a lot of times it's just kind of adding keyframes, being slow and intentional and, testing it, going back, seeing how it's doing. Is it working? Is it doing what we want? Okay. I want to get it to right up to the edge. Here's another tip. So let's say I went through and I did all these keyframes. I hit the space bar and I'm like, oh, like it's too slow or it's too fast or whatever. If you select, it matters where your mouse is. So if my mouse is in the 3D viewport up here, this window, if I hit A, it's going to select all the objects. But if my mouse is down here in the timeline, if I hit A, it's going to select all the keyframes. You can see once I tapped A, all these keyframes turned yellow, which means they are selected. If you move your, or depending on where your playhead is, the current time indicator, the blue thing, you can tap S for scale while your mouse is down here, and it's going to scale the keyframes, or like it's going to scale, all of the keyframes proportionally based on where the playhead is. So like because I'm on frame 112, it's scaling it according to where in relationship to frame 112. I can left click to apply it or right click to cancel that. So like if it's in the middle here, if my blue playhead is in the middle and I do scale, it's going to kind of squish it down towards the playhead. Same thing here at the beginning. So if I'm at the beginning and I want the animation to be slower, I want to spread out these keyframes, I'd move it to the beginning like this, tap S for scale, and I'd scale the keyframes out like this. And you can see there's like a little bit of shuffling that has to happen because the math isn't perfect and a keyframe needs to be exactly on a frame. Left click to apply that. So now if I play this, you can see it's a little bit slower. But that's maybe what we want. And then he kind of eases up to the edge there like that. Okay, cool. Nice. All right, so now I want the how I envision this happening is the lemon is going to kind of pause at the edge for a little bit. And actually, you know what? I think I want to, if I go on frame 133 here. So the other handy thing is these buttons jump to endpoint will take you to the beginning and the end of your whole timeline. These ones here will move you forward and backward between existing keyframes. So if I want to edit this keyframe on 133, I can kind of click through here and make sure I'm right on top. And I might say, give me the side view because I actually want to make sure that the lemon is right up on the edge. So I'm going to G and move you like right here. So you're looking over the edge. And we could maybe add like a little rotation this way or like have it kind of bounce up and down. You can fiddle with that if you want, but like a lot of those sort of like little finesse things, that just takes time. That's just more time adjusting your keyframes, making sure things are doing exactly what you want. Looking at the graph editor, switching over to the graph editor here and fiddling with these keyframes. So you can see now if we look at the graph editor, let me open up some of these things. So you can see this one is actually doing quite a bit of work. If I click on this, which one is this? This is the Z rotation. So that's kind of the top rotation like this. You can see it's kind of swinging back and forth a little bit. So you might look at this and say like, oh yeah, it's swinging a little bit too far this way. I'm just going to bring this one down. Or like, I just want to keep all these sort of even. That one's a little bit too far. You can do all the kind of fiddling you want to make it look exactly the way you want. I'm just going to trust that I did it okay. All right, so now I want it to sit here for a little bit, and that's going to jump off. So easiest way to have something stay there is just I'm going to select this keyframe. I'm going to do Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste a little bit further down. So it just goes. It's going to sit there, and then maybe even a little bit longer. And that's going to like jump. And like maybe we'll do some like dramatic camera action here. And then it's going to jump off. So from here, it's going to go. Let's see. Let's think about this side view. It's going to go up in the air. So it's going to go zoo. And then maybe it'll hang for a second. Maybe we'll do some like graphic or graph editor stuff. And then it's going to go way down fast like this. And I even want it to rotate a bunch like this. will that work if I have it rotate? Oh no. So this is the difference between Euler rotation and quaternion. Right? Or no, I think, now that I think, so like if I do, which one do I want to rotate? X. So like if I do that, is it going to spin a bunch? Oh, hold on. So here's what happened. So like you can see that now it's like rotating a bunch all the way from the beginning. That is because the auto keying, I don't believe it was doing, let's see. Yeah, so it keyed the X at the very beginning and then it added a keyframe at the very end. So it's going from 0 to minus 600 or whatever it is here, minus 1400 throughout the whole thing. So what I need to do is I actually just need to take these rotation ones and just move them all the way to this spot here. So the rotation is only happening here. There we go. Doing a bunch of flips. So it goes up. And maybe so let me add another keyframe here for X rotation. You can see that when I do that. So here's another kind of little indicator here. When you open up the properties, you can see there's like this solid line that goes across. That means that value is holding. It's not changing between these keyframes. So you can see here, like the X value holds from here to here. I do actually want to start to have this rotate just a little bit like this. So you can go, and that'll be the end. And the other thing too is I don't want these to ease. This is going to be just like to infinity. So I want to select all these keyframes at the end and I'm going to go V vector. So it won't ease into the finish like that. So let's take a look here. He's scooting. Pauses, looks at the edge, jumps up, and flips away. So, the timing's a little off. Obviously, the like lift into the air is like, maybe we don't want it to ease here either. Maybe, so like if I do Z location, which is this one here, right? This one, I might just select this keyframe and go V vector like that, so that it kind of pops up a little bit quicker. Okay, cool. So part of what I wanted you to do was to have two things that are animating. At least two, minimum of two. So maybe you have two lemons that are like, hopscotching over each other, or two whatevers. But I'm going to choose my second thing to be the camera. And I'm actually going to put a few different cameras so that I can switch between, and I'll show you how you can like change cameras through the animation. And even just like, you don't even necessarily need to animate, like physically move your camera. I'll count changing cameras as animation. So to get to see what our camera is looking at, it's 0 on your number pad. So right now it's looking down at nothing. It's also this button right here, toggle the camera view. So this is look through the camera and look through the viewport. The other thing that is handy, if you have it, if you're kind of moving around your viewport like this, and you want your camera to have the view that you have right now, keyboard shortcut, and again, I'm on Windows, so just forgive me if you're not on Windows. But it's Control, Alt, and number pad 0 will align the camera with your view. So you can see now that like whoosh, that little kind of gray square came in, and this is what I'm looking at. If you don't have those buttons, or can't do whatever, you don't have a number pad, Control Alt 0, the keyboard you can find it in the menus here by going to View, and it is Align View, and it is Align which one is it? Align Active Camera to View, Control Alt number pad 0. So here, because I actually was doing that, get in really close like this. So go View, Align Active Camera to View. And if you have a different keyboard shortcut, it'll show you what it is right here, Control Alt number pad 0. So that's handy. Okay, now, so moving anything, moving lights, moving objects, moving whatever, also just involves adding keyframes. I'll show you a couple of tricks real quick. So let's just, for fun, I'm gonna do number pad 7 for top down view. I'm gonna go to frame 1. And I'm gonna, I have my camera selected, and auto keying is still on. Remember, I have this toggle on. I'm in the timeline panel down here at the bottom. And I'm gonna G move my camera over here. And you can see that now it added location keyframes. And I think if I do R like that, it'll move the way I want it to. And then, so I'm gonna kind of have this camera sort of maybe follow behind it like this. So I'm gonna go G and kind of move it over here, and it's gonna follow behind. Now here's your tip for the day. Some of you maybe remembered this from 3D Basics. I believe I showed it to you, but you can tell your camera to look at a specific thing too. You can say, like, rather than trying to make my keyframes always be like, okay, rotate a little bit and look a little bit more here, we can just say, camera, look at the lemon. So with your camera selected, we're in object mode here. There's this thing in your properties window over here on the right, this tab that's called constraints. And we are going to add an object constraint. And the one we're going to look at is tracking. Under trapping, we're going to say track to. And so this is a constraint that will, I'll just show you. So there's a little eyedropper here. You can click the eyedropper and just click on the lemon. And you can say track to lemon. So you can actually see that now there's this little dotted line that's pointing from the origin of the camera to the origin of the lemon, and that the camera is indeed looking at it now. So now if we go through our animation here, we can see that the camera starts at this position. It's moving to the other keyframe while it's looking at the lemon. So this is actually where the animation workspace can come in handy. So along the top here, remember, we can go over to the animation workspace. Part of the animation workspace is one of the views it has by default is what your camera is seeing. So you can have both, the 3D viewport look or view and the camera view. So I'm actually going to go Z and do material preview like this over here. So this is what the camera is going to see. It's going to get really close. Oh, that's maybe too close for comfort. So maybe what I'll do here, I'm going to click on the camera and object view here. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just, once it gets like right here, I don't want it to be that close. I've got auto keying on. This is actually on the dope sheet. I'm going to go back to timeline. Auto keying is on. I'm going to pull the camera back just like this. So it's going to kind of take a long path around. So it's going to, okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to add a new camera, and I want the camera to be like down low on the cliff, so we can get sort of like a dramatic angle of it. So how about this? So what we need to do is we need to add a new camera into the scene. So I'm going to left click on here, and I'm going to go Shift A to add something into the scene, and I'm going to add another camera. And I'm going to rename these so that it makes a little bit more sense. So instead of camera and camera 001, I'm going to name the first one is just going to be camera. So I can double click right here and say camera 1. Also, with the camera selected, you can change it here in the object properties here. And this is, I'm going to highlight this and say, you are camera 2. Let's see, so where did it, so it automatically adds it at the like world center here in kind of a funny spot. So I'm just going to G and move it out. So in your scene, there is always an active camera. Two ways to signal which camera is active. The less visible way is actually, in your scene collection here up in the top right, if you click on that little green camera, that becomes the active camera. So you can see that this one is clicked here. It's maybe kind of hard to see, but that one's clicked because it has the little gray box around it. That means it's active, and now this one is active. So this one's active, this one is active. And you can actually see the view changes over here on the left. The other thing that's maybe a little bit easier to see, so if I click off of here, there's this black triangle above the camera. When that triangle is filled in, that means it's the active camera. So you can see like, now this one's active, now this one's active. So I'm gonna make this new one we added active, and I'm just gonna try to like get the angle that I want here. And because the auto keying was on, it automatically made a keyframe, but that's not a big deal. So I'm gonna do Control-Alt-0 because I want this to be the view. So you can see like now, because like we're down low looking at it like this. Okay, so we've got, oh, where did you go? Why did that move? Interesting. Okay, well, I'm just gonna move it back. G, go back. Control Alt 0. Sure. Okay, there we go. I don't know why that... Oh, do I have more than one keyframe on here? This is where auto keying can be dangerous. So I'm just to do A to select. I'm turning off auto keying. A to select all. Deleting my keyframes. So now there's nothing moving. And let me just get this. Maybe I'll even go to the object properties here like this, and just get all of these at a normal number. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now how do we say switch from camera 1 to camera 2? So that is done through markers. So let's see. Let me just click over here, and I need to refresh myself. So I believe we need to have a camera selected. So I'm gonna say at the beginning at frame 1, I want it to be camera 1. So if I go to frame 1 and I have camera 1 selected, we can hit this marker menu on the timeline panel. We can say marker, bind camera to markers. Bind the selected camera to a marker on the current frame. So now we can see, like, down here at the bottom it says camera 1. So it made a marker for camera 1 at frame 1. And so, like, and this is again where this little camera viewport comes in handy. So it would say this camera's following here. It's going to get there and pause. And then, so maybe like frame 142, we want to switch to camera 2. So I'm going to select camera 2 from my scene collection up here. And I can do the same thing. Marker, bind camera to marker, or Control B. It does the thing. And so now there's a marker here on our timeline. So this says at frame 145, switch to camera 2. So now if I play through this, we can start to see, yep, camera 1's doing the thing, yep. And then switch to camera 2. And let's see. Now we can animate camera 2 a little bit. So camera 2 maybe we'll have it like from here to here. Maybe we'll turn auto keying on. And I'm going to K insert location and rotation here, and I'm actually going to move this kind of to right before. And I want V to vectors because I don't want it to ease out. And so I'm going to move for like just a second. I'm going to move the camera back like this. So you can see we have this like kind of dramatic sort of like, oh my gosh, he's up so high. So I'm looking over here. I'm looking on my left to see what this is going to look like. You know, okay, so let's really cool stuff, right? Okay, so maybe right here, maybe like on frame 190, let's do another camera. So let's do Shift A. I'm going to add another camera here. This is going to be like the side view, just like right here, like this. Control Alt 0, and you know, like you could cameras in 3D and in Blender function like regular cameras too in the real world. So like any camera that you have selected, so camera 1, actually I should make sure to rename this camera 3 so that it all makes sense. So if you click on the camera data properties here, so I have camera 3 selected. I'm going to click the camera data properties here. You can change the focal length like this. You can make it wider or narrower. Whoops, and that was camera 2 that I had selected. Oh, shoot, did I move the wrong one? Yes, I did. So let me undo. I had the wrong active camera and I did align to view with the wrong one. Okay, there we go. So now I think this is doing the right thing. That's another thing to be careful of. When you do Control Alt 0, it's going to move the active camera. So I got to make sure to, now I want camera, I'm going to rename this camera 3 because I undid that. I'm going to make camera 3 the active camera by clicking on the thing here. And now I'm going to go over here and do Control Alt 0, move that camera over here. And I'm going to change the focal length to be wider so we can see it jump in the air. And then I'm probably even going to move it closer. So that would be in the X position. And maybe make it even wider just for like a really dramatic thing. So we can... Oh yeah, and then I have to make sure to have it change to camera 3 at that point. So at frame 193, I've got camera 3 selected. I'm going to do Control B as the keyboard shortcut, add marker with camera. And there it goes. The banana goes out of sight. The lemon. Okay. There we go. So here's my animation. Actually, I should do render preview so I know exactly what it's going to look like rendered. Oh, yeah, so I have one light in here. Maybe you want to add another light. There it is. That's my 20-minute attempt. If you want to get fancier, like let's say you just want to put a quick material on your ground thing, don't forget the materials tab is here. This is all optional. Again, like I'm not requiring any of this, but you can just put a very simple color on here, like if you want it to be a red thing or something like that. Shift A if you want to add another light, another point light maybe, just like move it over here. The lights are really dim by default, so you can check object data properties here with the light selected, the point light, and you can make this a big number like 500 or something like that, and that'll make light to your scene a little bit better. Walking lemon, it gets up to the edge. Huh? Jump. Look, beginning, middle, end. That's we're just practicing doing the thing. Okay, I'm at 55 minutes. Let's very quickly go over rendering. Dong. Okay, but hopefully not too quick for you to freak out about it. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the layout view. Go back to a render preview like this. Okay. Output. So just, make sure you're being conscious of your frame rate, the resolution, etc. The other thing to be conscious of is your render engine. So if you go up here to render, I recommend for this one doing Eevee because it's going to be much faster and it's going to just spit out a nice, easy video file for you. Maybe next week I'll cover cycles and rendering an image sequence. But just for now, for this first one, everyone just do Eevee. And then we'll cover more rendering later. So here's just do exactly what I do for this one, unless you feel comfortable going out on your own. So output properties on the tab here on the bottom left. Make this a little bigger. Okay, output properties. It's this one right here, the printer with the picture coming out of it. Scroll down here to output. So you want to include your entire frame range. So if it starts at frame 1 and goes to frame 300, make sure you're starting at 1, ending at 300, and the step is 1. So 1 frame at a time. Next thing, output. Make sure, so this one here is where you're choosing where your render is going to go. So click the folder here and choose a spot that makes sense. Don't just do the C temp folder because that just dumps everything in there all the time anyway. So go to your school folder. Where's mine? Recent animation. So this is Hannibal Tech Fall animation. And I usually like to make a new folder that contains renders. So this could be like week 1 renders. Maybe you're more organized or less organized or whatever. Okay, and so we can accept this. The other thing you can do here or in a second is you can choose the file name that it's going to be. So this is going to be like lemon drop. And I just came up with that right now. Lemon drop, accept. So like this, you can see the file path here. It's going on my Head Up in Tech, Fall 24, animation, week 1 renders. You can also type what you want the file name to be right here. So you can call this lemon dump. No, it's going to be drop. You can type it right there as well. Okay. Now, file format. So if you were to do an image sequence, so render out each individual frame as an image, you would select one of these image formats like PNG or JPEG. For this one, let's just render it out directly to a video because this should be pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You shouldn't have any, I'm hoping that you don't have any computing issues. So just select this video format, FFmpeg video. And then the other important thing is open up encoding. The container is important too. So Matroska is an MKV file. This is, there's DV, there's MOV, whatever. Do MP4, MPEG-4. Select that one because that's just the easiest one that always works with everything. So we're doing, the file format is FFmpeg video. Open up the encoding here, select MPEG-4, more commonly known as MP4. Video codec H.264 is fine. Don't worry, I'm a nerd about these things, so I know what this means, but you don't. Just do H.264, MP4, H.264. You can change the quality if you really want to. Medium is fine. Speed is good. Okay. So now this is gonna create a video file at this location. So final step is render animation. So render menu up here or Control F12, render animation. So we'll be able to see it happen. You can see it. It'll take a second while it does it. It's going to go moderately slow because I use this lemon model, which has a little bit more detail. So I'm going to pause while this runs. Okay, we can see that it's done here. It got to frame 300 top left. So I can close this render window and then just find my animation file. So if I go to week 1 renders, there it is. There's my video format. So the deal with doing the MP4 with the H.264 is that this is compressed. So you really, I actually don't notice hardly any noticeable like quality issues. Like if you pause it at a specific spot, you might see that it's like a little blurry or a little fuzzy, but the big advantage of doing it this way is that it just gives you one video file and it's probably pretty small. Like if I do my details view, how big is this? Yeah, it's 2 megabytes. So that's teeny tiny. The downside of doing it like this is that like if your computer crashes for whatever reason, or if Blender crashes while it's rendering, you kind of lose the whole render. But with Eevee, it should be going fast enough that it's not that big a deal. So, that just took a couple of minutes. I wasn't even paying attention how long it took. So then you can submit this video file, and also if you could please submit your saved Blender project file as well to D2L for assignment 1. Okay, look, I feel like I actually timed it out pretty well. We're at 1 hour and 1 minute. So please complete assignment 1. We'll have another lecture next week, and actually I don't even know what it is. Let me pull up the schedule real quick. Animation fall. Oh yeah, okay, so next week we're going to talk just like a little bit more about animation style and some of the principles of animation. Hopefully you are pretty familiar with some of those things. And then after that, we're going to get into character animation. And I'll just preview a little bit. So like we spend a fair amount of time talking about character animation because I think it's one of the things that people are really interested in learning how to do. But I think there's less like work, I would say, in character animation kind of in the industry. But at the same time, it's never been easier to just kind of make your own things too, like put it on YouTube or put it on your favorite social media platform of choice. So we'll spend a little bit of time on it, but then we'll also spend a good chunk of the semester doing other types of 3D animation. We'll talk about like motion design and kind of advertising and sort of art even and things like that. So we'll cover a variety, but we'll kind of check off the character animation stuff early in the semester and then move on to, in my opinion, some other kind of cool and exciting things in the second half. Okay, that's it. Please email if you have any questions. We'll Zoom in 2 weeks, and you'll have another lecture from me next week.